Hey guys, let's talk about some recent horror reads. First book I want to talk about is Pinata from Leopoldo. Gout. Probably saying that incorrectly. I was sent an ARC from Tor Nightfire and I was so excited to read this because it was one of my most anticipated books of 2023. This is a possession horror about a woman who is a designer and she's working on an ancient abbey in Mexico. And she brings her two daughters with her, and while they're there, something goes wrong. An accident happens on the abbey site, the dig site, and she loses her job and she's sent back home to New York. But an ancient evil follows them home. I love the concept of this story. It sounded very much like The Exorcist to me, and the opening gave me The Exorcist vibes. The prologue is so captivating and scary. My issue with this is the writer is kind of wordy. He likes to go off in little tangents on things. I felt like a lot of the times we were being introduced to characters and learning information that wasn't really helpful to the plot at all. We kick off this story getting to know this woman and her two daughters, and I really liked that. I liked getting to see their relationship unfold, but then halfway through the story we're introduced to other characters who become involved with this family. There was just a lot going on and not enough of the horror and exorcism possession side of the story, and we don't really get to see a lot of the possession stuff until like the end of the book. But when we do get glimpses of the horror, it's really terrifying and there's some really scary imagery. So while this book didn't deliver what I wanted from it, I do think it was an interesting read. I just wanted more. I wanted more of the mother and her daughters and how this mother was going to save her family. And I wanted more of the possession stuff to take center stage, but it felt like it was kind of pushed to the side. Let me know if you've read this one because I do think it's interesting. It's an interesting concept, but the way it was marketed, I think it was marketed as like Head Full of Ghosts meets Hereditary. It is not that book at all. Then I picked up episode 13, which I was so excited to read. This was one of my most anticipated books because it's a found footage horror. And not only that, it's centered around a ghost hunting TV show. Those are two things that I love so much. I love ghost hunting TV shows. I will fall asleep to them, like Ghost Adventures, all of the stuff on the Travel Channel. That is my comfort. So I loved getting to follow this ghost hunting crew as they investigate this infamous location. The found footage elements I thought were woven into the story very well. We're getting glimpses of these characters' inner thoughts and feelings through journal entries and emails and text messages, and we're also getting clips from the show. It's kind of written through transcripts. You're reading this through transcripts, and we follow them on this dark journey as it starts off seemingly normal and then it slowly escalates over the course of the story. It's scary when you're uncovering the mystery behind this house and the horrific things they were doing to people there. It felt very ominous throughout the story. There was just this heavy sense of dread where you know something wrong is going to happen because it's found footage. And found footage, you typically find the footage after the characters in the story die or go missing or something wrong happens to them to find the footage. So I was just anticipating this going horribly wrong throughout the story, and I found the characters to be really interesting. I loved the ghost hunting element and I could just envision it perfectly as a show I would watch on the Travel Channel. It felt very much like Grave Encounters, which is a found footage horror movie about a ghost hunting TV show. Also towards the end of the story, it became very claustrophobic, very trippy, and very much like As Above, So Below. It was nothing that I expected it to be. I loved every minute of it. I could not put it down. It gets a little confusing towards the end, but overall I enjoyed the ride. I loved it so much, and I'm so excited to read more from this author. So I did pick up another book from him called Suffer the Children. It's about a pandemic that essentially kills all of the world's children. But then a few days later, they return, but they're not the same, and they might have a taste for blood. This book is extremely heartbreaking, emotional, and just overall, it was really hard to read at times. The story is told from the perspective of the parents, so you're getting their lives before the event, and then you're following them when the unexpected event actually happens, and it's traumatizing. It's so hard to read, and you're like, oh my god, how would I react in this situation? And then you follow these parents through the grieving process, us, and it's really sad. It was really hard to read, and I wasn't expecting to get that emotional reading this. It felt very similar to Crossroads by Laurel Hightower and Pet Sematary by Stephen King. It just deals with loss and grief, and it's heavy. And then when these parents get a chance to be reunited with their children, it highlights how far they're willing to go to keep their loved ones alive, and it's dark. It's a really well told pandemic horror, and I just loved it. After reading Pinata by Leopoldo Gout, I found Ghost Radio in Barnes & Noble by him, and I thought this story sounded perfect. The story is about a radio station, a call-in radio station where people call in to talk about their paranormal experiences, and there's some type of phenomenon that happens on the air, and this radio team is pulled into it. Amazing. It's everything that I want. I love radio set horror for some reason, and it sounded very similar to Ponypool to me. And then I found out that the audiobook is narrated by Pedro Pascal, the daddy of the internet right now, from The Last of Us, among other things. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna give audio a try. I'm not an audiobook person. I cannot do it, but for Pedro, I could. So I gave it a try. He's fantastic. The story, however, is not. It's just too slow, too boring, and it didn't have enough of the radio show elements to me to keep me invested. And I honestly have no idea what was happening. And I was just so bored, and I had to put it down. I had to stop listening. Even for Pedro, he couldn't keep me invested, but he's fantastic. He's so good. Then I picked up Piercing. This author is also the author of In the Miso Soup, which I read a few months back. Didn't particularly like that one, but I loved this one. It was such an interesting, unique, weird, sometimes funny, just dark read that I could not put down. I was so sucked in. So this story is about a man who has the strong urge to murder his baby with an ice pick. And he has a lot of other dark urges, but that's what he's focused on at this moment of time when we meet him. And he doesn't want to kill his baby, but he needs to fulfill this urge. So he decides he's going to hire a lady of the night to fulfill that desire. But when he meets this woman, she is not who he expected her to be, and she has very similar urges and dark tendencies as he does. And their night goes completely in a different direction, very unexpected, and it's insane. I went into this having seen the film. It's a US version of the film from a US filmmaker. It's set in the US. It stars Christopher Abbott and Mia, I don't know how to say her name, but they're fantastic. I loved them. The story is so weird, but it's mesmerizing. Like, I could not look away. I was so nervous about what was gonna happen, but there's a lot of stuff unsaid in the movie that I didn't really understand that the book explains for you. You get more insight into these main characters and why they're the way they are, and you learn that they're very troubled. I mean, obviously, he wants to kill his baby with an ice pick, but he had a very abusive childhood that made him kind of look at things differently. It's kind of what prompted him to have these dark urges. Love and pain go hand in hand for these people, and it's just so fascinating to get their inner thoughts and get their history and learn about why they're the way they are and how they come together, and they're very similar to each other, and it's just so interesting to see them play off of each other. And female character in this is so interesting. She's equally as dark and messed up as the male character, and you're getting the story told from both of their perspectives, and each one is looking at the situation differently, and they're not communicating to each other because obviously one wants to kill the other, and it's just fun and disturbing, but it's a wild ride, and I loved it so much. I think I rated this 5 stars. Now I have to read Audition next because I love Audition the movie. Then I downloaded Kindle Unlimited for like a 30-day free trial because I wanted to read this book that's currently on Kindle Unlimited. It's called Run on Red, and this is a fast-paced thriller about 2 girls who are in a car traveling to a party when this mysterious truck starts tailing them on the road and basically tries to run them off the road, and it's this whole cat and mouse game where these girls are trying to fight for their lives from these strangers. I thought overall it was a mediocre, average read, but it is fun, it is quick, it's It's felt very Lifetime thriller to me, and that's not a bad thing. Like, you're getting what you sign up for with this book. Don't expect ridiculously crazy twists. I think everything is just kind of predictable and feels very at one level throughout the whole story. And there's I guess a twist towards the end where you learn about why these people are doing this to these girls, and it just feels a little ridiculous and unbelievable to me, but overall I thought it was good for what it was, and it's a fun read. I love road horror stories, road thrillers. I do think it was fun, and if you like road horror like me, you might like it. Please recommend me some road horror. Then I ended things with a folk horror called The Creeper. I heard about on TikTok, and the person described it to me. It sounded very similar to the found footage horror Butterfly Kisses to me. It's not exactly the same, but the story does center around an urban legend known as the Creeper, and it's about this mysterious figure that once you see him, you'll see him 3 times before you die, and he kills you. And he has like this creepy smile on his face, and he's almost Slender Man-esque. So the story revolves around this doctor who hires these 2 former students to investigate this small Irish village that is cut off from the rest of the world. They've lived only in this village, have never left, there's no roads that go in and out of it for like 200 years. So these 2 people go into this town and they meet this village, and they're kind of weird, and it's just really scary, creepy, and weird when they're in this village. And then this little girl tells them about the Creeper. Once you hear the superstition and you start to believe in it, then it affects you. So I like that it kind of explored that idea of an urban legend and how they spread and how they get stronger as they spread and more and more people tell that story. I thought it was really fun. I had a lot of fun with it. It had some really creepy moments, and the idea of this guy coming to your window every night, 3 nights in a row before you die, is absolutely terrifying. I overall really enjoyed this. I think if you like folk horror like The Wicker Man and Midsommar, you will love this one. And it's also on Kindle Unlimited. So there you go. Those are all my recent horror reads. I recently downloaded Kindle Unlimited, and I want to get through a bunch more Kindle horror books. So let me know if you have any recommendations for Kindle Unlimited reads. I already downloaded a ton. Let me know if you've read any of these books I talked about. Let me know your thoughts, what books you're reading next. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I will catch you next time. Bye.